Hi, my name is Chris Burgess. I am a sound designer and mixer, and today I'm going to be giving a demo of the new Penguin Grenade sound effects library, Raw Magic. I'm going to be doing a sound redesign of a magical spell from the video game Elden Ring, and it is important to note that all the sounds you will be hearing are exclusively from the Penguin Grenade Raw Magic sound effects library. No additional sources were pulled from anywhere else, and the only processing you will be hearing are the plugins I added as well as any volume, pitch, or time stretching manipulation in Reaper. I chose to treat this as a work assignment of a hero or a player skill, so I came up with 3 different designs, trying to take different approaches. And I don't like to preamble too much before letting people hear things, so I'm just going to run through these sounds and then we'll come back and talk about what we heard. Here is Design 01. Here is Design 02. Here is Design 03. So I want to do a track-by-track breakdown so you can really hear what's going on. But before we do that, I just want to give a little context to what we're looking at. So you can see I've markered what I consider to be the important parts of the sound, which is the warm-up of the spell, the cast, and the beam, which would probably be a loop, and then an ending where the beam sort of fizzles out. So while each of these designs takes a slightly different approach, they all try and follow the same shape or gesture and tell the same story for the visual. My design philosophy in general is to find source sounds that I like or that tickle me. I cut them to the picture and then I try to process them as little as possible. This is just a personal preference of how I like to cut sounds, but I think it's worth drawing attention to for this demo because it shows, I think, how compelling this source is and how little work I had to do to get results that made me happy. So why don't we dive right into Design 01 and we'll take a look at what's going on. This one really started with this bass wind up and this wonderful rubber chicken. My only other real goal as a sound designer is to make myself laugh, and I can never resist the rubber chicken. I love to find the absurd limits of how far is too far. And when you can see that on someone else's face, you know, it's a great feeling. This first sound has no plugins on it. I'm just using a stretch marker in Reaper, which is pitching it up over time. That's an awesome sound by itself, and I just wanted to help move it along to show it was pitching up and we're gaining energy before this attack happens. Continuing on the windup, we've got this wind. And that's kind of starting panned wide and then coming to the center. There are no plugins on the child tracks, but I am doing a little treatment on the parent track. I've got this eventide stereo room reverb, and this is just a trick I use with the mix at 100 and the position at the front, which is something I've seen Alan Meyerson do. It just kind of pushes things off the front of the speaker, and to me it felt like these sounds benefit from that. And then a devil lock set to 1 and 1 with a mix of 3. You're going to see this a lot. I call this the lazy man's compressor. This is really just a quick way to kind of level out a sound and bring up detail that might get lost in the tail as it starts to compete with other layers or even other sounds in the full game mix. And just bringing that mix knob back until you blend it to taste. So if I turn these off, and if I put it in context, I really wanted that wide feel of this wind popping around your head, but without that reverb, it feels like it's just a little too ear pokey to me. So it just kind of glues it in a way that I like. And then we've got those really cool blue tendrils that are happening as it charges. And we are doing an S1 imager. All this is doing is so the sound starts wide, hard panned, and we bring it to the center to show that the beam is being focused before it shoots out. We've got some high pass filtering going on to clean it up and just a little lazy gain staging with a plugin. If I turn that off and we look at the child tracks, let's see, there is a plugin on here. Just a little devil lock. I guess I wanted to bring something out of that. But if we go through these, we've got this Tonal scrape milk jug. And I think it's already, it's in reverse. So it comes like that, and I use some stretch markers to pitch it up over time. Awesome sound. And I think that devil lock is just giving us level, basically. And then we've got some bubbles. Yeah, no plugins, stretch markers pitching it up. Just another awesome sound. Let's see, we've got a whistle. I think I added this in originally as kind of a joke. There's a devil lock. Maybe just adding some harmonic content. And I took it out, and then I put it in at the very end. It's pretty subtly layered in there, but I think it adds just a little something. And then this choir, which I really enjoyed this sample. So if we look at the original sample, this is a little messy with all my takes, but I love this kind of thing. It's human, it's vocal, it's got this really cool pitch cluster already happening. So I used that with the Valhalla reverb. You're going to see this plugin a lot through my session. It's literally just the default settings. I might adjust the decay and the pre-delay and the mix, and that's probably all I did in this session. So I printed that reverb to a new take and reversed it. So sorry, I reversed it. I printed the reverb on it, and then I reversed that. And to me, that just added another element of focusing that magical energy. We've got a chime sound. Just felt like the right thing to do. Again, we've got... So this was another instance where I used the Valhalla reverb to print probably that raw little bit. Brought this down onto another take, turned off the plugin, and now we've got some pretty tonal thing. Aztec death whistles, as you do. More reverb, just at 25%. Shortened the decay time, and gave it some pre-delay just to try and give it a little depth. We've got some LFE right as that thing finishes. And some noise. And the LFE, you can see that has no processing on it. That's just an awesome sample of something being rolled. And then this noise, I think, was just some kind of reptile. If we go to the top take. And I'm doing a little stereo room again just to push it off the front of the speaker. So if I turn that off. And then I reversed that and used a stretch marker to pitch it up. And that's that. If we move on to the beam itself, kind of continuing some of that tonal chime element I had up here. I think this was from the same sound file. We've got some reverb and some gain. Oop, it's a little sharp, sorry. Anyway, sounded pretty. For the actual sort of ballistic of this beam, we've got these awesome beatbox sounds in here. And I am using a devil lock again. A little more, I'm actually using the crunch up at 8, but the mix is down at 2. So if I turn that off, that's a cool sound. Now that's a loud, cool sound. We've already heard our rubber chicken, which is just using a tremolo. Just to give it a little something. I think while I was listening to the vocal sounds, I heard these vocal sounds. Which is just more crazy beatbox sounds. And I'm using a devil lock on both of these. Looks like it's probably copied from that other vocal sample, so the settings are pretty aggressive. And if I turn these off, I mean, that's just such a cool sound. And I think with all that, I felt like it was still missing some girth. So I found this bowling ball sample or cannonball being rolled on wooden floor. And I changed the playback rate to 2. And I added a devil lock and low passed it a little bit. So if we take these off, and it's at its original playback speed now. The filter was really just to get rid of some of the hand movement on the ball, and the devil lock is really just giving us a lot of glue and gain, and then getting that into a register I liked. And then we had our beam LFE. Which all I'm doing is adding some decapitator to. Just to give it some upper harmonic content. And then I started playing with this swell idea, and I was looking at this blue mana bar and thinking maybe that's something we would track in the game and maybe fade in a layer as it's running out. Valhalla reverb. Just trying to give it more of that vocal kind of dark magic quality. Sounds cool to me. And then it looks like I came up with a little tail down here just to try and finish it off. And this is more death whistle and more of that same magic bell from earlier, just with, you guessed it, Valhalla reverb. And I think on this one we're using Valhalla shimmer and high passing it pretty aggressively just to try and give you the memory of that sound a little bit. And something I like to do with this is go and turn off all the plugins. I think I need to turn down this one sound so it doesn't blow us up. So here's the same design with no plugins on. Really, really great, really interesting, and just very rich in character source recordings. So I called that first design the get it out of your system design, where I put everything in, maybe too much. And I wondered, well, what if we did something more tonal, something very clean? So if we look at this first warm up or wind up, you can see there's no plugins on the children tracks, and I didn't do any processing on these. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not true. I did. You can see the playback rate goes 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, just to sort of insinuate that the pitch is gradually rising as the energy charges, and the panning is going from hard right to hard left, and it's sort of narrowing into center as we go. And I'm doing some processing on the parent group. So if I turn all these off, this is what this sounds like. I don't need the low end. And we've got the Echo Boy from Sound Toys. I'm using the Space Echo preset, which is my favorite preset. That's just giving us a little density, a few more instances of that whippy sound happening. Same thing with the frequency echo, kind of doing the same thing, but a little differently. And then the Devil Lock to just quickly glue it all together. You see it's at the default settings, barely at 1. Again, that just kind of brings out some of the quieter details that I want to hear. More wind up with some high pass filter and a Devil Lock, kind of doing the same thing. And then this warm up wet. We got a Devil Lock on that. And this is another way I use the Devil Lock. You can see it's set to 1 and 1 with the darkness set to 4. So we're killing the high end a little bit. It's sort of squeezing together some of the sharper bits of the sound. It's darkening it. I left the mix at 10. And to me, it just had a great shape to it and a great kind of other liquidiness that I liked. A little bit of LFE. That's not doing very much, though wet dries down. Maybe just adding a few more harmonics. This voice recording, which again, I didn't do anything to except add stretch markers and pitch it. Just an awesome sound. So that's it for the warm up, and then we get down to the cast section. So I'm going to solo these up. So really what we're doing here is it's one sound, this mortar urban punchy, which is an awesome sound. But sometimes what I like to do in this more other sci-fi fantasy setting is I split the tail out, and I only do this because I haven't found a plugin that just gives me this sound, but I just offset the tails, kind of going for that Star Wars flangey thing. And this is a just manual process. If I was making variations, I just tune this to the delay times that I like the sound of. And it looks like I've got a Devil Lock on here doing the same thing it's doing everywhere else, which is just mixing it a little bit to bring out some of the subtler details in the tail. So if I turn that off, it just helps with the sustain a little bit, which is going to help in the overall mix later. Okay, here's my favorite sound, the rubber band. So I've got the explosion with the cool flangey thing, and I thought, oh, let's put a sine dive on this for fun. And I heard this rubber band sound. I'm just going to play it. So if I turn off my plugins and come out here, that was the original sound. I gave it a playback rate of 0.2 and was like, oh my God, that's so cool. And then we add a few plugins. So I've got a EQ, which is just sort of giving us a clean out with that filter sweep. A decapitator, which is giving us a lot of character. And then an Echo Boy set 2, the Space Echo preset. Because I thought it was a good sound, and I thought a delay would give me more of that good sound. Let's see, we've got a beam loop here. So on the parent, we're doing some filtering over time because this was a pretty static sound that I came up with. I was just trying to give it some interest over time. If we open this up, it's just reverb and a de-esser. And very similar to the Devil Lock, I've started to use de-essers this way, where instead of getting an EQ out and hunting down a specific frequency, if I'm in a hurry, I know that I can just throw this on there and get a result that might sound natural enough, especially for something that's already this processed. And then reverb to just give me more of that sound. And what this originally was a hamster scream, which I time stretched to 0.1 speed, but I preserved the pitch to give us that really fun, for me, Aphex Twin feeling. And then I duplicated it and pitched it down 12 semitones. And at this point, it felt like maybe it was still lacking some girth, so I went for another sound I can never resist, which is a big cat purring. So that's it for Designo 2, and if we turn the plugins off on that one, let's hear what we get. Again, I don't think I'm radically changing the identity of any of these sounds. I'm just sort of shaping them and putting them in a space where I think they might live together. So for Designo 3, I thought the first one was pretty nutty. I thought the second one was very tonal and maybe a bit cartoony. The third one was a bit indulgent for me, wanting to do my homage to how I feel the soundscape of Elden Ring actually makes me feel, which is dark and moody and yeah. So if we start walking through these, I tried to narrow my palette even more on this one to just metallic tonal things, just to try and get into a really moody space. So if we listen to these, it looks like we've got pouring rice into a metal dish. And the only thing I'm doing to these is high passing and adding some Valhalla reverb. Let's see, we've got this subwoofer thunder sheet. I'm not doing any time stretching, stretch markers, no plugins. By golly, just an amazing sound. So if we come down here, we've got some waterphone sounds. And I'm just using the Space Echo preset. Here we're doing a little more. We've got a devil lock, gluing some things together, a Space Echo preset, and another devil lock, probably to bring up some of the detail out of the Echo Boy. Nothing too crazy. And then with all that, I felt like it was, again, I really like this tendril element, and I felt like all those dark elements were emotionally feeling in the right direction for what this version was supposed to be, but it was missing that visceral energy. So I found some waterphone tinkling. And the only thing I'm doing is narrowing the image. And I did reverse the sound, so the original would be this. It's just awesome, awesome stuff. All right, if we come down here to the actual cast of the beam, we've got this metal corrugated sheet. You can see there's no plugins on that, no pitching happening, just a nice sound. There was a gong. Seemed like something good to do. And this piano hit. Which I think I duplicated and put it at a playback rate of 2. And then more waterphone to really give us some more upper frequency content. And the chain on these is that Devil Lock, Echo Boy Devil Lock. And on this bottom one, I did add a little bit of chorus. It just felt like it needed a little something else. And if we turn off all the plugins on that, so those are my redesigns using the Penguin Grenade Raw Magic sound effects library. And just to wrap things up, I would say that I think an interesting recording is always better than a good recording. And this library for me delivers on both of those things. The sounds are very rich in character, and I could see myself reaching for them again and again to create important sounds in a video game like player skills or an important UI moment, or even ambient sounds that need to inform the story of the space the player is occupying and just insinuate some more detail. As far as the recording quality, I think that's fantastic. You can see I was able to time stretch some of these sounds beyond reason to come up with exciting new results. And I think it's worth noting what I didn't have to do. I didn't have to reintroduce dynamic range to sounds that had been squashed. And I didn't have to deconstruct sounds with EQ when they were maybe too noisy or too busy, which saves me time. It keeps me in a happy creative space to just be dropping in interesting sounds and working. And it means that I can move quickly and hopefully move on to the next design or go home when it's time to do that. So yeah, 2 thumbs up. This was a lot of fun. Great job, Penguin Grenade. This library is awesome. So thanks for watching. I hope you got something out of this or were at least amused. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Thanks.